MiniWarGaming rules you got wrong.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to this week's Rules You Got Wrong 40K edition. We're trying to get back on track with these. We've been super busy with filming, so we're just getting these in where we can. But this week we should be able to get all our 40K ones done at least. 40K ones done. 40K, yeah, you know what I'm saying. So this is a show, of course, where you have posted comments on our videos about rules that you think we got wrong, and we address those. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, but we all learn together. And we hope to, over time, lower the number of mistakes that we're making, but let's face it, there's always going to be mistakes, especially because I'm going to be talking about my new Genestealer Cult battle reports. And it was a brand new list, or a brand new army, so there's going to be mistakes. There's also going to be some discussions as to how certain rules are supposed to play out. And then we'll just go into all the other 40K ones as well. So I got two battle reports to cover, although the second one didn't really have any mistakes because it wasn't really long enough to have mistakes. The first one is Genestealer Cult versus Imperial Fists. And that was with George, who happens to be in the room with me right now.
Hey!
But he's going off to film, and more battle reports with Dave today. Anyways, the very first one, Tyrannid Swarm, at about 35 minutes, you said that you can't use reserve roll modifiers of allies of convenience, but the rules say cannot use modifiers and rerolls that apply to reserve rolls that are granted by an allies of convenience model. And the +1 reserves is granted by the detachment, not any particular model. So you could argue that the allies are affected. That is a good argument, and I actually don't know what the answer to that would be, because it is really, this is the first time it's ever come up. And so if it was a specific model that was like the Swarm Lord, for example, if I allied in Tyrannids and I brought the Swarm Lord, let's see, reroll reserves, I think, or +1 reserves, one or the other, but let's say it's reroll, then the Genestealer Cult would not be able to reroll their reserves, because that just doesn't grant it. Because it's specifically a model. But the Genestealer Cult detachment says that you get +1 to your reserve rolls and your opponent gets -1 to their reserve rolls. But it's not a model. So I can see how you could argue that. In fact, you could just say, well, rules is written. It just says an allies of convenience model, so you do get the +1 reserves. I still think I'm going to play it until I'm told otherwise, that they don't modify the allies' reserve rolls. It just feels right. And for the most part, most people's detachments don't modify their reserves. What they might do is say they automatically can come in turn 1, or they can automatically choose a turn to come in. But it would probably say models from this detachment get to do that. So I think that's up for debate. It definitely is up for debate. Rules is written, yeah, sure. The Genestealer Cult detachment reserve modifications could apply to allies, because rules is written, it just has models, not detachments. But I'm probably going to sway more towards maybe a rules as intended, or rules as I think they were supposed to be intended, because it just doesn't happen very often. Tyrannid Swarm, at 49 minutes, the Icon Ward's banner grants Furious Charge, so the Metamorphs are wounding on 2s. Yeah, I went back and forth with that a couple times, as you saw. See, what happens is the Patriarch, when he joins a group of Genestealers, he grants them Furious Charge. It specifically says that on the Genestealer's profile. And so when I was charging, and I'm like, yeah, I got Furious Charge because of the Patriarch, I was incorrect. But I did have Furious Charge because of the Icon Ward, because everybody within 12 inches gets Furious Charge, and heck, everybody within 24 inches, if they're from the same formation as the Brood Cycle, gets Furious Charge as well. And so I did have Furious Charge, and I later correct that, because the Icon does grant that. So not because of the Patriarch, but because of the Icon Ward. So I was both wrong and I was right. I was wrong in thinking it was a Patriarch, and therefore wrong in thinking that I didn't get it, and then right that I should have got it. So yeah, I'll get used to that. Criesto! A unit must be fully within a deployment zone to have Linebreaker. Seeing as the entire Fire Raptor was not completely in your deployment zone, he did not have Linebreaker. That is absolutely correct. I looked it up, and it does have to be fully within. Normally you don't deal with that because you have like little models and 32mm bases or 25mm bases, so it's not hard for them to usually just be fully within without even thinking about it. Now, having said that, I don't think it would have changed the game. If George had known that, it would have been a simple matter of moving the flyer over, because as somebody else points out later on, Crew Stunned has no effect on a Fire Raptor as they have extra armor, so Crew Stun gets counted as Crew Shaken. So there's really no way to stop a Fire Raptor except by immobilizing it when it is in hover mode from being able to go wherever the heck it wants. Also, when firing your Leman Russ, since the Sponson and the main weapon are differently named weapons, even though they have the same profile, you fully resolve one before moving on to the other. So you would have likely had less hits against the Tactical Marines. That's right, the main turret is the 3-shot Strength 7 AP2 blast, and then the side ones are your plasma cannons. And so you're right, I should have resolved either the 2 sponsons or the 3 shots separately. And that would have had less guys to hit with the other blast. So that is absolutely right. I did do that wrong. The Astra Militarum are, I've played them before, but not a lot. And so I should be, now that I have a Genestealer Call army, I'm going to play the Astra Militarum more, sometimes on their own as well, and make that kind of one of my main armies as well. And that way I know all the rules for them really well for when because I have a funny feeling I'm going to want to ally them quite often with my Genestealer Calls. Also with the Leman Russ, you should have made a Gets Hot roll for each shot the main gun made, not just one for all 3. Yeah, see, I had thought that since it's one weapon, you roll 1 Gets Hot, but I did look up Gets Hot and weapons that do not roll to hit, and it does say you roll a die for each shot. So since it's 3 shots, I do have to roll it. So that's 5 chances for that Leman Russ to get hot, and then 50-50 chance each time to get a glancing hit on itself. Petep, minor point, but the autocannons on each of the Fire Raptor turrets are only 2-shot weapons. The rules source for them in 40k is Imperial Armor 2, and the FAQ for that book says you swap the quad heavy bolter for a twin-linked autocannon. The confusion probably arises from the 30k version, which has Reaper autocannon instead. Yes, this is the confusion of having a model which has rules in about 5 different books, a couple of them which are now outdated. What we had done is we did a quick Google search for Fire Raptor gunship for PDF, and we actually got a link to the Forge World website, and it was what turned out to be an old PDF. And even then, it said it could take the Reaper cannon if it was a Chaos Space Marine one. So I think the Chaos one can, but I don't quote me on that because I didn't actually look it up in Imperial Armor 13, I think. But I did look it up in Imperial Armor 2, and sure enough, you can't take Armored Ceramite, which he did, but that didn't matter. That just cost him 20 points. And you can't exchange the missiles, which are Storm Strike missiles, not Hell Strike. We'll talk about that very soon. And then the errata on the Forge World website. So you have to know which book to look in, and then you have to know that there's an errata. So I wish that they had a page on the Games Workshop website which listed every single unit or every single model that they sell for every game, and then next to it tells you the book that has the latest rules, and then next to that has any links to erratas or FAQs for them. That would be phenomenally useful, because how many times have I looked up, usually for the Forge World stuff, and found out, like the Thunderhawk gunship, I think I have 4 books currently that all have rules for it. The Apocalypse book, the Escalation book, the Space Marine book, and then the Imperial Armor books. And none of those books are now outdated fully. None of them have been replaced. They just have certain components in them that have been replaced. The Thunderhawk gunship has been modified slightly over those books. And so it's a little confusing. And so but now we've now done a lot of research on the Fire Raptor gunship, and there's some other things we got wrong with it as well, which I will be covering, so I'll just leave that to that. But we should have all the rules right for the next time that we use it in 40k. 30k, that was a little simpler because you just look in the red book that Forge World has put out and use those rules. Pollock, company commander has 3 wounds. Minor error, but thought I'd mention it. Well, since I brought an extra guy in the company command squad, that kind of makes up for it. But yes, I should remember he has 3 wounds. Daniel TMU, Matt, the plasma cutter on the Tech Marine is twin linked. So he would have had a second chance to overwatch with the plasma cutter to try to kill one of the acolytes that were charging the first turn. Latro, Fire Raptor's front gun is twin linked. See, the confusion for that is, sure enough, in its war gear it says twin linked Avenger Gatling cannon, I think is what it's called, or Punisher, whatever it's called. And but the problem is it then lists the weapons, and it just listed as an Avenger Gatling cannon, and it doesn't say twin-linked. So you have to remember that the war gear actually said twin-linked. It's kind of like it said twin-linked last cannon, but then it gives you a list of the weapons that it's armed with, and it just says last cannon. You might forget that it was twin-linked. So that's why in a couple of our battle reports, we've forgotten that it's twin-linked. But now it's twin-linked. Pretty much everything on that ship is twin-linked. That's the easiest way to remember it, except the missiles, of course. The missiles are, he says, the missiles are in fact ordnance, if I remember correctly. So he did have had to snap shoot the other guns if firing the missiles. That is incorrect. They are not ordnance. I did check this. They are concussive, strength 8 AP2 missiles. The confusion might be because I think we were calling them Hellstrike missiles, which I think Hellstrike missiles are ordnance, but they are Storm Strike missiles on the Fire Raptor. Thankfully, because ordnance missiles suck. You might think, great, you get to roll an extra die for your armor pen, but if you fire an ordnance weapon, all your other weapons have to snap fire. Now, it does have Machine Spirit, so that'll allow it to do one more weapon. But let's face it, that seems to be more of a handicap than it is something helping, especially when you consider it's got a front turret of 7 shots, 7 twin link strength, 7 shots, and then 2 side ones that would all be snap firing, so that would be pretty bad. Sorry, I got something in my eye. Can't seem to get it out. Well, we'll see. Allergies are acting up. Now here's an interesting one. DeFerris, 1987. Depending on if you would classify the return to shadows as a move, the guys at the board edge would have needed to pass a regroup test to return to the shadows. This determination would also mean that you could not return to the shadows while falling back because, per the rulebook, units make a fallback move immediately upon failing a morale check. The only moves they can make in subsequent phases are fallback moves until they regroup, or while pinned, as you cannot move after being pinned. The return to shadows rule is a bit vague. It is done in lieu of moving normally, but whether or not it counts as a move is not stated. This is a hard discussion, and this is something that actually came up because when I read the Return to Shadows, it just says, basically it says you can return to shadows as long as there's no enemy within 6 inches and you're not in a vehicle. But it does say instead of moving. Now, or instead of movement, I think. And the hard thing about this isn't War Machine. War Machine has a very cut and dry set of, you can give up your shooting action or your movement action or one of your actions, and it's very clear when you're doing that. And 40K is not as clear. And so I think you're right, is what it comes down to, because it always felt weird. It felt weird with units that are falling back just to return to the shadows, because they're falling back. They don't have time to, morale-wise, find a place to hide and then come back with more guys. Like, they're falling back. They've been spooked. They're running away. The pinned guys, fluff-wise, it could make sense for them to return to the shadows because they get their heads down and then they kind of crawl into the nearest sewer grate or hole in the ground and then they come back up with more guys. But let's talk rules for a second. It says instead of moving, well, if you're pinned, you can't move. If you are locked in combat, you can't move. But locked in combat doesn't matter because you're within 6 inches of an enemy. And if you're falling back, the only moves you can make is a fallback move. Well, you could say, well, instead of that move, you could return to the shadows. So I honestly don't know what Games Workshop's intention was for these. I know the way I've been playing it is as long as they're more than 6 inches away, you can do it, which is nice because in acolytes who are getting shot at, they go to ground and then return to the shadows. So I feel that falling back, but what if you make a regroup test? Like, let's say you actually pass your morale test. You're supposed to move 3 inches and not move any further than that turn. So instead of moving at 3 inches, could you return to the shadows? So if you make your morale test, could you return to the shadows? What we're going to need is an FAQ. In the meantime, I think for falling back at least, I would say that they have to make their regroup test. So they'd have to pass that morale test. For pinning, I don't know. It's instead of moving, and pin guys can't move. But, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Because if you had a power that said instead of shooting, then you could do this, like smoke launchers, for example. And let's say you had a vehicle that all the weapons were destroyed, and it hadn't used its smoke launchers yet. Would it be allowed to use its smoke launchers? Because instead of shooting, but it can't shoot because it doesn't have any weapons. And I know that's kind of, it's a weird comparison, and it's not the same thing. But it's a strange one. I'm not quite sure how to rule on that. I know I want the pinned ones to be able to return to the shadows, but I've also now played the army enough to see that it's a good army, even if I wasn't allowed to return to the shadows while pinned. Falling back, sure. I have to pass a morale test before I can do it. So I'm not sure on that one. What do you think? Let's have a discussion on that. And then at 1 hour and 30 minutes, the Fire Raptor had extra armor, and therefore the crew stun would have been a crew shaken instead, and it should have been able to move. You're all right. We did forget about that. S. Blang Cut X. Do we have a consensus on whether or not units that have cult ambushed out of reserve count as having moved for the purposes of firing heavy weapons? I feel that the army could be pretty competitive with autocannons popping up behind rear armor, but not nearly as much if they are snap firing when they show up. See, I think it's pretty clear. I think if you roll a 1 or a 2, then it's clearly you've moved because you move on from a table edge. But if you roll 3+, it says the words set up. And somebody, I remember on Daka Daka forum said, well, the setup is kind of like a deep strike without scatter. And deep strike says you count as moving in the shooting phase for purposes of your weapons. But it's not deep striking. It is not at all deep striking. It has a similar mechanic to deep striking, except not really, because you set up and the restriction is how far you are away from enemies. And you don't scatter. You don't even think of scattering. It just says set up. I'm going to continue playing it, that if you roll a 3+, then you don't count as having moved in the shooting phase. Furthermore, and this one, it might still come up, I can't remember, is that if you deploy at the beginning of the game via cult ambush, your first turn, you can still move. You don't count as having moved. So I think that's going to come up as well. Right. Robin Nordstrom. Brood Cycle requires 1 unit of pure strain gene stealers. You're right. A couple people pointed that out, and I just somehow missed it. Would have been nice to actually have them. Foolest Fish 13 or Foulest Fish 13. When metamorphs take metamorph whips or metamorph claws, they replace their rending claws. They don't. All I can say is read the entry, and it's fairly clear. They can just take them. If they take a second set of metamorph talons, then that replaces their rending claws. But that's the only case. Because otherwise it defeats the purpose of the whips and the claws, because the whips and the claws both have the rule that if equipped with this, you get the bonus. And that specifically, I can tell you what the intent is, just like the Harlequins ones that do that, the intent is that you take a claw to boost the power of your rending claw. What they could have done to make it easier is just give the claw rending and the whip rending, but it's just simpler sometimes to do it that way. So you bring a claw, then you got strength 6 rending. You bring a whip, you're initiative 7, strength 4 rending. You bring 1 talon, then you're +1 weapon skill, strength 4 rending. Bring 2 talons, you lose your rending, but then you're +2 weapon skill. I don't see why I'd ever bring that though. I'd always want the rending. FEITs, as soon as you can't make base contact with a pylon move, the combat ends and there are no more pylons. Would make a difference at about 50 minutes. This is something I had to look up because it has never really come up. It's come up plenty of times. Let's say you have a combat going on and you have the 2 combats going on, and these guys out front are high initiative, let's say initiative 7, and they kill a bunch of guys right here. And then the guys in the back are initiative 6, and they pile in, they don't get in base contact. Well, then I know that they wouldn't attack. That's happened plenty of times in my games. But what actually happens is that a specific initiative step, after both sides have done their pile-in moves, if you still aren't in base contact, the combat ends right there and you do your assault results. And all remaining initiative steps are lost, which I'd never known, to be honest. This is the first time it has ever come up in the hundreds of battle reports that I've done for 7th edition. And because in order for it to happen, you have to have at least 3 different initiatives. And that doesn't happen very often. And so basically what can happen is you go in, and let's say at initiative 7, these guys kill a bunch of these guys, but there's one guy right here, initiative 1, who could pile in and attack. But then the next is initiative 4, and these guys pile in, and this guy's still close enough to pile in to get there, but they don't get into base contact. Well, he doesn't get a chance. It actually just ends right there, and all remaining initiative steps are lost, which was something I learned. And we'll have to remember because it'll rarely come up. Now, mind you, with the Gene Stealer Cult, you're playing with all sorts of different initiatives. You got lots of initiative 7s, 6s, and 4s, and then some 1s when you bring in the Acolytes with their special weapons. And so you have access to a lot of different initiatives, whereas most armies only have access to a couple typically. You have like Space Marines with like 4s and 5s, and then some 1s. But most of them are like there's a set initiative across the whole army with some modifications. But Gene Stealer Cult, you often have units with mixed initiatives. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I had to look that one up. I thought you were making it up at first. I'm like, where did you get that from? I looked it up. I'm like, oh wow, there's that line in there that nobody ever has to know. I even brought it attention to everybody else in the office, and nobody knew that because it has never come up. It actually rarely comes up for them of actually having the subsequent pylons not get in. So yeah. Jusius Theon, the one. What about the new flyer rules, dogfight phase, etc.? It's come out that those are optional, so we're not using them because I just, I hate the dogfight phase. Absolutely hate it. Not formations, but the flyer patterns, the attack patterns, I really like those, but I don't like everything else that comes along with it. Like just by having flyers, your opponent gets -1 to their reserves, especially when I'm Gene Stealer Cult. And well, I guess in this case, he would have had a flyer against me. But no, I had a vendetta, so same thing. Dogfight phase is just. I don't like the new flyer rules, except for the new attack patterns, which are kind of cool. But so we're not doing those, unless we specifically say that we are. Paint a list. Is it possible to charge flyers in hover mode? Yeah, a flyer in hover mode is. It's still technically a flyer, but it is for all intents and purposes, is treated as a fast skimmer. And that's it. So they drop down. You can charge them. So yes, definitely. Chris Churchill, I'm pretty sure the challenge ended at 1 hour and 4 minutes. I'm pretty sure the challenge ended when the sergeant was killed. Could be wrong, but that's what I thought. The challenge is actually not ended until the end of the phase. If you read it on challenges, you'll see that it says that the challenge is considered ongoing until the end of that turn. And so, or that assault phase. And so no, it is still going even though he dies at that point. And then it's around the same point. Return of the Shadows is voluntary. Can't do that when falling back. Well, I wouldn't use that argument to say, well, it's voluntary. It's like, well, yeah, but there's lots of things. That's nowhere in the rules to talk about voluntary versus involuntary. But we have covered why falling back might not allow them to return to the shadows. Serpentine 101, is it me or does he have an extra dude in the company command squad? Yeah, I did. Should have been 5. I had 6. Jonathan O'Brien, at 32 minutes, those first 4 were not in cover against the first 5 Marines or so. He probably should have rolled those bolters separate, but still. That is incorrect. When you choose a weapon, basically the way that you work out your shooting is you choose a unit, you choose a target, assuming there's no split fire and all that kind of stuff. Then you choose one of your weapons, and everybody with that weapon has to fire. Now, you can choose for certain guys not to shoot their weapon. So, for example, just like you said, if those 4 fired, then I wouldn't have been in cover. But you can't choose to fire 4 and then fire 5. You have to choose how many you're firing, and you do them all at once. And if I get cover from just one of those guys, then I count as having cover from all of them. And so that's what he has to choose. Do I shoot 9 guys while he has cover, or just 4 guys so he doesn't have cover? And you have to do the math. You have to find out which one is more worthwhile to try doing. But no, you can't split it up. The only time where you can split it up is when you're firing at a vehicle, and some of them would be firing at 1 armor value, and others would be firing at another armor value. Then those have to be split up. But against a unit, no, you don't get to do that. Sugars, hi. At about an hour in with the orbital bombardment, I had a query. When the second transport blew up, can it hit the people who just got out of the first one after it blew up? Or are they considered as having occurred at the same time? Thanks, and awesome battle report as always. That one could be disputed, I think, but we treat it as happening simultaneous. So basically the strength 10 drops, we roll for both vehicles, they both got a blowout explosion, and then, because otherwise I could choose like which one comes out, and then the other one comes out and gets hurt by the other one, because they both blew up at the same time. So that's how we treat it. We treat it as simultaneous, so therefore they're not affected because they were in the vehicles at the time of the vehicle explosions, which is why they took the strength 4 hits from the vehicle explosions themselves. Zitao, when Matt's Lehman Russ got hot, why would he only lose a hull point on a 4+? Is that how it gets hot works with vehicles? I think it's the other way around. I don't lose a hull point if I have to roll 1, 2, or 3. But yeah, if you roll gets hot on a vehicle, then you roll a d6, and on a 1, 2, or 3, you take a glancing hit with no saves allowed. And then Crabsoul, you can't return to the shadows the turn you deploy with ambush. It counts as moving. See, I disagree with that. We'll have to wait for an FAQ, but I would be surprised if it counts as moving, because then it would suck horribly. And that, I know that's not enough of a reason, but if I call to ambush turn 1 and then I can't move on my first turn, that's awful. It's just absolutely awful. And we've combed through the rules several times and we can't really find evidence that that is the case. I know it says the turn you deploy, but that could be referring to setting up with the 3+, because you don't deploy during a turn. You absolutely don't. The game there's no game turns associated with deploying. You deploy before we even know who's going first and before turn 1. And so, yeah, I don't think that's the case. And we're going to continue playing it that if you deploy via call to ambush, then you don't count as having moved. And you can do whatever you want in the movement, shooting, and all that kind of stuff. If you roll a 5, you actually get to shoot during deployment, which is weird, but it does say immediately. So that is that. Great Chicken God, 17 minutes in. Don't you take the perils roll before the deny? Because you might drain away any potential deny dice. You're absolutely right. It's just usually that doesn't usually come up because it's only one of the results. But yes, as soon as you roll the perils, you need to resolve it. And if you roll a 3, then both sides lose d3 dice, and that could stop the person from denying the witch, which I think it actually would have in that case. Now, if it kills your psyker, it says for Perils of the Wharf that you still get to actually do the power, even if the psyker is slain. It's kind of weird, because how do you shoot at a target? But we just, for all intents and purposes, treat that the psyker is there until the power is manifest, and then we remove it. Matthew McDiarmid. A couple things with the Tech Marine. They have 2 wounds, not 1. That's one thing, but yeah. They do. But I would roll a rending and a regular wound on him. So the rending wound, he didn't roll for. You saw him roll 1 save, and he failed it, but he had lost the other wound from a rending hit. 3 Shades. It is, at 16 minutes, it is illegal for those acolytes to go back to the shadows because they're within 6 inches of your company command, which, as an allied convenience, is an enemy model. That's absolutely right. So yeah, that's another disadvantage of bringing the allies, although there's lots of advantages. But you do have to be careful of now shadows in the warp for synapse creatures of Tyranids, and there's just any enemies being within 6 inches, you can't return to the shadows. So it does shut down a bit of their synergy, but that's okay. Son of Cadia, Prescience does not work on Gets Hot rolls for the plasma cannons. You can re-roll the scatter dice, but not the Gets Hot, as you are not rolling to hit. That is incorrect. If you look under Gets Hot and weapons that do not roll to hit, it talks about rerolls, and it says if you get to reroll to hit, you can reroll your gets hot roll as well. The FAQ that the Games Workshop's come out with has specified that if you can only reroll ones to hit, for example, for preferred enemy, or if you have your tactical doctrines on and your Devastator squad firing plasma cannons, then you do not get to reroll the gets hot roll. But if you can reroll everything, then you can definitely reroll the gets hot. It's very clear in the rule book, and the FAQ did not override that. It only overrode if you have something that just lets you reroll ones to hit or preferred enemy. 118 Warhammer, you have to hit the most you can in a squad with blasts and flamers. With template weapons, you're absolutely right. You have to cover as many as you can, but with blasts, you don't. With blasts, all you have to do is choose a model that's in line of sight and in range, and you can place the blast over that. Other than that, there's no restrictions. So that's it for episode 17. It was a rather long one this time because, well, it's a new army for me. In episode 18, there were actually no questions about rules I got wrong. The game was relatively quick, so there probably weren't really many mistakes because it wasn't that long. It's just I wanted to answer one question. Daviac87, what size bases did he use on the Neophyte hybrids? They look bigger than the 25mm ones. No, they're just 25mm. The Acolytes have the 32mm ones, but the Neophytes are just your regular 25mm bases. That is all for me.
All right, I got some from my 40k game when my Necrons fought some Space Marines. Maka88 says, Wraith or weapon skill 4? Yep, I think I may have played him in weapon skill 3 all game. It's been a while since I played my Necrons at the time, and I just, for some reason, assumed all Canop Tech was weapon skill 3. It's been a while, but yeah, totally a mistake on my part. Should have just assumed. Gitling, 5506, Stephen, relentless does not mean you are fearless. You should have taken pinning checks with the Tomb Blades. Rules you got wrong! Exclamation point, exclamation point. Because they're bikes, jet bikes, they're immune to pinning. That's not because they were fearless. Or, sorry, not because they were relentless, as you said. Yes, they are relentless, but they're also immune to pinning because they're jet bikes. So it had nothing to do with the fact that they were relentless. Unless I'm misunderstanding what you're trying to say. Aaron Stegnar. Stegnar? I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. In the first combat, the race did 1 glance 5 and 1 pen 6 to the Dreadnought. You only had 2 hull points left. Okay, so this is really less a rules error, but more in my... It's a comment to my narrative style. Normally when I say a weapon is going to damage a vehicle, I will always say what the glance is. So I'll say something like, 5 is the glance, 6 is the glance, 4 is the glance. And everybody knows +1 is the pen, for the most part. But when I say 6 is the glance, it's always because of a rending weapon. Most people know, but not everybody's super familiar with all the rules. Not everybody's been playing as long as the rest of us. So when I say that, what that means is, if I say 6 to glance is a rending weapon, or sorry, 6 to pen is a rending weapon that can't possibly glance. So if you have like a rending weapon at strength 6, shooting at armor 13, or sorry, that's not actually going to work, armor 12, you can't help but pen it. So when you roll a 6 to do the damage on the vehicle, 6 plus your strength 6 is 12 would be a glance, but because it's rending, you automatically add D3, so it becomes basically 13. So there's no way to actually glance it. So if I say 6 to pen, it means there's no way to glance it, and you're actually only penning on 6s. So there wouldn't have been a glance on that 5. So just 6s to pen, no glances. Sorry, long explanation, really more of a comment on my narrative style, but if that's too confusing, I'll try to not do it that way anymore. Sigismund, the Emperor's Champion, never played Necrons, but didn't Reanimation Protocol scale up from 4 up to 5 up to 6 up every time it uses it? No, it's in that particular army, that particular list I brought, it was always a 4 up unless it was modified by instant death or some other things. It may have been an old rule that I'm not familiar with, but no, it is 4 up all the time unless modified by instant death or some other things. Guy Ling, 5606. Steve, relentless doesn't mean you don't take pinning check. And the Tomb Blades are not fearless. Pinning checks should, so it's another one. So pinning checks should have been taken. Rules you got wrong. Explanation point. Unless you're the same guy commenting in, maybe I misspoke. Maybe sorry, 2 of you are saying it very much the same way. Jet bikes are, you can't pin a bike. It's just a basic rule book. So so I apologize if I misspoke. I'm not sure what happened there. I'll look at the timestamp in a moment afterwards. But either way, you can't pin a jet bike. They have relentless, and they're not fearless. Harbinger of the first of 16, of the 16. Hey guys, around the 29 minutes when the Storm Talons were shooting the jet bikes, I believe the Assaultkin had 4 shots, not 3. Thanks for the bat rep. Oh, you know what? I normally mark the next battle report. This is a different battle report. This is a Vault Space Marine versus Eldar battle report. Yeah, if we rolled 3 shots, it should have been 4. Brain fart. And apologies. Grimlock 7, this is again the same battle report, the Eldar one now. Grimlock 710666. Hey guys, per the Eldar FAQ, oh yeah. The Wave Serpent and the Avenger or Aspect Host formation benefit from the +1 ballistic skill. So the 37th minute, the Wave Serpent should have been hitting on 2s against the Storm Talon. Even without the FAQ, I think it's pretty obvious it +1 ballistic skill. I just forgot. That's on me. My bad. I forgot. Pistol Knight. The Dire Avenger Shrine says the formation can perform a killing strike once per game, meaning that all squads in the formation have to do it in the same turn. Yeah, I did that wrong. That was my bad. So the formation allows the Dire Avengers to fire an extra shot once per game, but I kind of read it as each unit can do it once. So I activated the killing blow. I got 3 different turns, one for one unit, one for another unit, and the third unit. So I totally cheated on that one. No excuses. I misinterpreted the rule. So that's my fault completely. IP Toothless. If you have Exarchs, those Swooping Hawk squads, they throw the grenade pack at Ballistic Skill 5 rather than normal 4. I brought an Exarch model, but I couldn't find all the Swooping Hawks during that day. I don't know why. I had no Exarch, I just had the Exarch model. So that's an error on my part for not spending more time to find the correct model. So that confusion is on me, and that is my fault. Mecha 88, the Devastator Doctrine doesn't allow you to doesn't make you relentless anymore. That was the last codex. They should only be rolling 3 dice instead of on turn 1. So no, they rolled 5 attacks for the Grav Cannon because they were in the formation, which is called the Skyhammer Annihilation. Something like that. Skyhammer Annihilation. Skyhammer something. It gives all the guys relentless on the turn they come down from their draw pod. That's why, not the Devastator Doctrine. Where are we? Ninja Nick, the Swooping Hawk Las Blasters are AP3. The Marines should not have gotten the 3-up armor against them. I wish they were, but no, they're not. They're AP5, dude. Sorry. Incorrect. Murghul. That'd be overpowered if they were, or maybe not. Only strength 3. But no, they're only AP5. Murghul, Steve at 4520-ish. The Twin Link Heavy Bolter, I'm embarrassed about this one. Pen the back of your Wave Serpent, and I use the Serpent Shield to lower it to a glance. Can't do that on the rear. And I actually feel bad for you because I think you were downvoted a bunch of times. But you're right, dude. So me and at least 6 other people owe you an apology. Well, I made a mistake. I haven't played the Eldar in a while. Not an excuse, but an explanation. Patman 1440 at 30 minutes and 45-ish. The Imperial Fist Devastators all have Tank Hunter, so he should have been re-rolling his armor pins. I looked at the clip. He shot 2 missile launchers, missed with 1. Or no, he hit with both, did a glance, and he rolled a 1 for the other one. But yeah, Tank Hunter would have allowed him to re-roll it. Completely forgot the rule. It happens. I think ultimately I lost that game, didn't I? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I lost that game. He was doing fine. But that's it for my rules I got wrong last week for 40K.
That's it for today's 40K rules you got wrong. Make sure you leave comments on our videos whenever you notice a rule that's wrong. Check the comment section to make sure somebody else hasn't already done it. And then try to give us a timestamp as well so that we can look it up, because we don't always remember exactly what happened because sometimes we've filmed them weeks in advance. So thanks for watching. Happy wargaming.